welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here and watching the YouTube channel. Really appreciate it. And there's floppy ears happening. Oh, so today, what we're going to be doing for this podcast is going to be Killer Lore. So, from what I noticed, like on YouTube and everything, there's very few places where you can go and see like actual, like, spread out detail of like lore on killers. So this is gonna be pretty much a fast track episode for you to be able to catch up on about 5 killers, and we'll probably do another one of these down the line. But yeah, we're probably gonna do another one of these down the line because it was definitely fun for me, anyways. So yeah. So the floor is going to go to my mods, Amber and Nina. They're going to be taking on the first one, which was the Wraith. So go ahead and let us know what made Mr. Wraithy boy Mr. Bing Bong.
His name is actually Philip Jomo, and he's from Nigeria. And Ajomo actually means, what does it mean? Freedom and risk in their language. And he came over here to start anew, and he got a job at a junkyard. And it was a very shady junkyard. Like, cops kind of got paid to turn away.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just kind of like, I've seen worse in my country, and as long as I'm doing my job and getting paid, I don't care. So he was working the car crusher. He fixed cars and then worked the crusher. And when he was working the crusher one day, he saw blood coming from the trunk of one of the cars. So he opened it, being curious, and he found a young man. And so he released him because he was like clearly not supposed to crush a human. And the boss caught him before he could run away and killed him. And Philip didn't really like that and was like, yo, what the hell? And the boss was like, oh, you're just the executioner. We have clients that need something, and we give it to them. Only certain clients, but basically you've murdered a lot of people. So Philip actually got very upset, obviously, and kind of went crazy and slowly killed the boss with the crusher. And the boss's head was sticking out. So at the end of the flattening of his body, he yanked the head with the spine out, and that's actually his weapon. Like, the weapon that he uses in the game is actually his boss's skeleton.
So does this mean if a Karen needs to speak to his manager, he's just like, here he is?
Pretty much. Did you want any detail on like anything else, like what his perks are or anything like that, or just that backstory is just fine?
Yeah, if there's like anything else you found like very interesting or you thought would be like nice to share, go ahead.
I think it was more just the obvious. Well, depending on if you played the game or not. If you don't, then he has 3 perks in the beginning: Predator, Bloodbound, and Shadowborn. And they're actually really good, which I kind of understand why Weewood doesn't like Bing Bong, because he is very OP. Like, even in the beginning, like, his perks are pretty intense, and it's pretty hard to be a survivor against him. So, like, you can see, like, one of them, Bloodhound. You can see the blood for X amount longer than what you normally would, and that would be pretty hard to get away from the killer. And the other one, you can see the scratch marks for X amount longer, and yeah, so I can kind of understand why you don't like playing against him. But that is kind of the story about Bing Bong, or the Wraith, who we call Bing Bong.
Can I say one thing I know about him real quick?
Sure.
Due to his backstory within the game, since not many people watching this video might not play it, if you do actually play the game, there is an archive where it can read it to you about him, and it explains his childhood and what happened to him as a child, and it actually shows. There's like a little video at the end of the archive. It's a video that shows him how he ended up getting burned like that. So while he was in Nigeria, I think it was either, I forget who it was, like marauders or bandits or something, came to his village and burned it down, and burned his house with his mom and dad still trapped inside. So this lady from the village took care of him and a few others. While they were wandering Nigeria to find help, they stumbled across 3 of the men who burned down their village, and the Wraith, filled with anger and hatred towards them, one night followed them to their campsite and started pouring gasoline all around them while they slept, and took a log from the fire that they were sleeping around and lit them all ablaze. One man woke up just before he lit them and splashed some gasoline or kerosene on his face, and that's why he's burned. Yeah, that's all I know.
Dang.
It was getting cold, so I had to turn on the heater. So I got the spirit, which I am not going to attempt to pronunciate the last name because I know I will butcher it, but it's Rin.
Yamamoka.
Yeah. I could barely say my own name until 6th grade, so I ain't. So some basic information first. She's Japanese, haunting. Her main power attack is a basic attack. Her weapon's a shattered katana. So in the game, her movement speed is about 4.4 meters per second, give or take. And then her alternate movement speed is about a 7.04 meters per second. And overall, her terror radius is about 24. I know that pretty much is very useless, but you're in your game and you can't quite be like, oh, this is a meter and this is a yard, but it's a little bit of more information. Average height, like the overall appearance, she's a girl, she's small, like, it's pretty close to it. She's a phase walker. So she also teleports, and that is also because of her background, which we will get into in a moment. So her personal perks are Spirit Fury, Hex, and Raincore. So those are the basically easiest way to explain it. She gets to watch her survivors, and then do obstacles, go around obstacles. They've given her a rating, I have not personally played her, of hard. So it's gonna be a little bit on the harder side to properly learn how to use her and use her powers effectively. So, she was only child. She grew up in a very old traditional house in Kagawa. Again, I mispronounced these, I'm extremely sorry. Forgive me. So she studied at a private institution. She also, money was on the tight side, and when I mean tight side, like very tight. Like once her mom got ill, she had to also go to do part-time, like this, like her father, like it was really high. Like he started doing double shifts, like losing sleep, everything. He begged for bonuses, anything, he tried to get more money, he tried. A lot of his requests were denied because he just wasn't that best of a worker, per se, because he wasn't accountable. But he was later fired. When Rin came home one night, she stayed late and tried to, get more tips, everything from the restaurant that she was working at. She heard her mom scream from inside the house. Basically, she saw her mom in bits and pieces. like limbs off, tangled up, like not pretty sight. The katana is the one that basically it killed her mom. She blocked it with blades, like that's how she gets all of these cuts and things like that. And like it goes on and on about like how it's not a pretty sight, and she kind of like dies as well. Rin also kills her dad as well because of everything that's going on. I don't do a lot of gruesome things, but like she basically made a deal with the devil, sort of thing. A devil, a deity, something along those lines. All that it's saying is like it was a dark fog, and like you couldn't really see the eyes when she made this deal. So she took revenge on her dad and things like that. And yeah. So she has a couple of unique perks: Spirit Fury, Hex, and Rancor. So all these are going to be really good. The Rancor, you're going to be obsessed with one of the survivors. So each time a generator is completed, you're able to basically look for that one and just focus on that guy. Once all of the generators are complete, the obsession suffers from a permanent exposure. So you are that one guy. You are bullet down, sort of thing. The hex totems is the other one. So those ones are kind of just spawn all over the place. They need to be cleansed or blessed. And like, yeah. That's what I got.
Can I add one thing real quick?
Sure.
The like you said, when she did make the deal with the devil, the big reason a lot of people don't know is why she has glass inside of her is because when her dad was attacking her, she jumped through a window to escape him, and that's why there's so many glass shards on her. She died from that fall, and like you said, when she did die, she did make a deal to come back to kill her father. The only other thing I know about her is that one day after she was practicing Kempo, some of her classmates attacked her, and the demon like bloodline kind of like came out of her, and she attacked all three of them and beat them down. I do remember something about the mother-daughter ring, which is an add-on within the game that her mother gave to her. She made a promise to her. I forget exactly what the promise was. I think it was something along the lines of, whenever you have this ring, I will always be a part of you, even when in death. I think it was something along those lines. That's why the iridescent add-on is the mother-daughter ring. And yeah, I know she was really close with her mother rather than her father. Yeah.
Nice, cool. All right, we will. Is your turn?
I was given the Trapper. And I'm gonna go mostly over his past because there's not a lot on there's not a lot on like his normal like current self, more what developed into what he is. The Trapper's real name is Evan McMillan. The Trapper he's gone by Chuckles as well in the lore because his laugh. His father was a rich company owner of mines and was very abusive to his employees and his kid, which is Evan. And he ended up basically just telling him to not make friends with the employees and would hit him and abuse him every time he tried, which ended up causing him to go through stages in life of becoming more abusive towards those employees because of every time he would try, he would just get hit or hurt. Um, Evan, he did love to draw. He would love to draw and do sketches. And his dad would say it was a waste of time. And if he caught him doing it, he would tear him up and just throw him away and said it was for weaklings and so on and so forth. And he should do something more worthy, as in be ready to take the company over when his time comes. And one day in the mine, one of his employees got sick and very, very ill, and his father told him to drag this miner out of the mine. It got to the point where Evan kept thinking he should just put him out of his misery instead of just watching him suffer. And that's what started to cause him to get his mental illnesses. It started to get worse as time went on because his father got really bad mental illness and he had to kind of take over the company at a young age, at the age of 16. And when his dad completely couldn't take over, he started getting really mad when they would talk about his mother. He ended up beating someone so bad that he might as well have killed him. And the father said, you didn't enjoy that because you enjoyed that not because of what they said, but because you just like to do it, just like to hurt people. And then he would say father like son. And then it got to a point where once his father completely got mentally ill and the company had completely taken over, Evan eventually took him to the mine, all the employees, and blew it up and let them all die in the mine. He ended up letting them all die in the mine, and then he chained his father up or tied him up in the basement of the warehouse and left them there and he started to starve. Once investigators got there, they just saw him starved and completely hopeless and weak. And they never could find Evan. Evan went off and just ended up, no one could be found. The only other part of this story is that, and this is where the traps come in, so it's a little fun fact, his dad would take him out into the forest because he liked to hunt bears. So he would make his son set up bear traps. And the story is that his father killed his uncle in a bear attack, quote unquote, even though the story goes that his dad probably killed his uncle in cold blood because of his mental illnesses. And that's why he uses bear traps to trap the survivors. That is the story behind the trapper. Mostly so on and so forth. No one knows what he currently does, and just that's the reason he uses his traps instead, bear traps.
Applause.
That was pretty good. Wow. So far, it's a lot of the killers have just very dark backstories, but that explains a lot. So, never judge a book by its cover, guys. All right, Fiery, it's your turn.
So I had the Oni. His real name, Kazan Yamamoka. The great grandfather of the spirit. Kazan Yamaoka was the son of Renjiro Yamaoka, which was his father was a samurai. And Kazan wanted to surpass his father, and wanted to like be better than his father as a samurai. One day Kazan saw farmers dress up in samurai outfit, like armor and gear, and this really angered Kazan because he knew the true meaning of being a samurai and wearing that armor and what honor that brought onto him and their family. Um, his father tried to turn Kazan's attention into noble pursuits rather than being a samurai. But Kazan kind of ignored him and wanted to and persisted to being a samurai. Um, Ignoring the code that had been taught to Kazan, Kazan killed the the farmers all throughout his town. Um, uh, with the long blade that you see in the game. That same weapon uh, his father used as he was a samurai. Uh, the killings were brutal, cruel, and morbid. He humiliated the farmers and warriors alike, um, by ripping. He probably the worst thing he did. Well, one of the worst things. He scalped all the warriors and farmers by he ripped off their I'm forgetting what you call it. Taupe knot. It's like it's kind of like a bun, but
Oh.
you would do it when you were like if you had very long hair, you would put it kind of like in a bun. So he tore that off them to dishonor them and show that you are not a samurai. You are not like nowadays you would any very small things you wouldn't think of, but back then if you put your hair up in a certain way, that means I'm this and you should respect me. So he tore that away from them and scalped it off them. He also stripped them of their armor and and bloodied their bodies even when after they were dead. His rage and bloodlust and perverse sense of honor knew no bounds. Monks believed he was possessed by something dark and otherworldly, and cursed him while a noble lord began to call him Oni Yamaoka, the rageful samurai, an insult to both Kazan and his family. Because once Kazan heard of this, his rage became greater, and he kind of I guess he kind of blamed it on the Lord because he was the one who always or he was the one spreading rumors about him, and uh, and he wanted honor to be restored to his not only to his family but the samurai name in general. Um, he defeated the best, and he purified the samurai class by the ridding the land of imposters. In his word, uh, to him, he was very confused on how anyone could refer to him as an ogre. Uh, he had been, um, he had not been in battle, but but he but he was determined to cut down any warriors to stop him from renewing honor to him. Um, it goes on uh, in his lore that you can read in the game that um, he tore through many cities just to get to Lord. No one beat him. He cut down everyone he came across. When he was about 1 or 2 cities away from the Lord, he met a samurai, much smaller than him, much more frail, and he thought that it was just another soldier that the Lord sent to stop him. But what Kazan didn't realize is he was much faster. As soon as Kazan saw him, he got in his stance, ready to fight. As soon as he started, as soon as he took a step and swung his blade, the samurai was already behind him, not sword clashing on his armor. When he realized he was outmatched by speed, he decided to do what he could do best and just try to brute force his way out of this situation like he did with everything. He quickly learned that not everything can be brute forced, so he tried his hardest to only to decapitate the samurai as much as he can. So all his force went in every blow went to the samurai's head. Eventually, he did crack the armor, and the sword cracked broke the armor and did crack his skull. When Kazan saw the face of the samurai, he realized he made a grave mistake because it was his father who tried to stop him. Now, this is a big thing in his lore, because if you look like the spirit, he does have an iridescent add-on called Renjiro's Bloody Glove, which is the glove that his father wore as he was dying in his samurai armor. When Kazan realized what he has done, the overwhelming anger and sadness took over, and he finally burst out in rage, and that's where that was the first time he ever did like his rage that you can hear in the game. So that's what made him so hateful. Now, I don't remember, or I just forgot to list it. It doesn't show exactly where he found his club, because it doesn't say that it was theirs, like the samurai used it. So I'm not 100% sure where he found that. But he did use it on the Emperor when, after he left his father to rest and die, he eventually made his way to the Lord's estate and butchered him. This when he did meet the Lord, who spread all these rumors about him, this is kind of where the information about his Mori came in. He chopped the legs off and arms of the Lord, and he pulled out his tongue and crushed it in front of him because he told all those lies. And so that is a part where his Mori comes into play. I think the biggest reason why he specifically hated the Lord is because of the name Oni Yamaoka. Because of that, he felt very dishonored, and people would constantly call him that, even when he was going through the towns, and he would kill anyone who said that to him. So he wasn't just killing farmers and warriors. He would kill anyone who would utter the name Oni Yamaoka. because of that, after he left the Lord's estate, a whole bunch of townsmen followed him, and they had pitchforks, swords, just any sort of weaponry, and they chained him up to a tree, cutting him slowly and letting him bleed out. A few days went by, and a little girl who first saw him kill the farmers came back to see him, and he was gone. There was nothing there but the chains that held him and a black mist. And that's most of the Oni's lore. There was one other thing. I think I wrote it down. His mother. It doesn't say much about his mother. It just mostly talks about his father. But his father did warn him before he did kill any of the farmers. He tried to lecture him on why it's not like he tried to tell him that's fine that they're wearing that. Let them do what they want. I want to focus on you getting that out of your head and focusing on studying. But the part that's interesting about this is he wasn't focused on his father's lecture. He was more focused on the sword calling to him, because he heard. I think it says he heard the sword calling to him. So I think that's kind of the entity getting in his mind, trying to become a killer so he can take him in for his game. Yeah, I'm not sure where he found the club, but I'm pretty sure it says in it that he used the club on the Lord. So I'm not sure where he found it, but yeah, that's mostly the Oni. I have 2 other pages of just what is a Oni.
Well, you did good, man. You did good. That was a very interesting backstory on the Oni.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing is that it's told within his family's line that he has demon blood within him, and that's what makes them really rage. And that's why also I remember from the spirits that what came over her to attack her father was kind of that same. They call it an instinct, a demon instinct within the lore. And I think really it's just something for them to snap and kill people. But yeah, I feel like his is pretty brutal backstory.
It is. That was I didn't really. I knew he was from that era, but that was a very interesting backstory to begin with. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's not as harsh as some other people like the Plague or the Hag, because they didn't do anything wrong really. They just Plague did by accident. Hag didn't know what she was getting into, and yeah. But the Oni, he wanted it. He wanted to kill people. He wanted to be known as a great samurai. But yeah.
Well, anyways, maybe in a future podcast episode we'll go over the Hag, the Plague, and some of the other killers that we didn't get to today. But thank you so much for the Oni. So far, all the killer backstories do have a thing in common, that they seem most of them enemies seem to be kind of a normal person, but then just a lot of tragedies happen to them, and they just end up, their mental state just goes downhill, and they just end up snapping. Oni, on the other hand, he was more trained like a warrior, fight like a warrior, I want to prove myself as a warrior, and I don't
He
like.
was told not to. Yeah.
Yeah. But he had in his head that he wanted to be a warrior, even though his father said not to. And at least his case is more like he kind of wanted it instead of the other ones who kind of were kind of forced into it.
Yeah.
Alright, so my killer of the night, the last one, and she is the newest killer on the block, the artist. I'm gonna say she's got herself her own tragic backstory and everything too. So it began with her mom leaving her brother, and her father, and it was at like a very young age. The father just wanted to blame her that she was the reason why the mother left. It didn't really go too into detail on why the mother left to begin with, but it just slowly went downhill from there. It just kept on. Like, her brother was really her only reason to live, and the only reason that kept her going. Even gave her, passion for her art. And then one day, her brother and her were playing outside, and she hears a phone call in the house, and her dad's just drunkenly, drinking his alcohol and everything because he was an alcoholic, and just didn't paying attention to it. So she was like, "Okay, I just should go answer just in case something important." So she goes to answer it inside. It takes about like a few minutes because right when she picks up, it's like something quick. So she hangs up almost immediately. Then she comes back outside and notices her brother is gone. So she goes around calling for him, going and calling for him, and then she noticed like in a ravine nearby that she sees his jacket floating in the ravine. So in a fright, she goes right down to the ravine and finds her brother had fallen down into the ravine and drowned. And she ended up letting out a scream that pretty much, sounded like it cracked the sky. And because of this, the father heard heard and came to, and like see what happened. But during that time period of him going over there, a big flock / murder of crows came out of the sky and just, surrounded her as she was crying over her dead brother. And the father came down, snatched the brother away from her. In the midst of her dad looking back at her and just making her feel like it was all her fault, and then further along the line blaming it all on her. For months after this happened, she lost the passion to do anything. She lost the passion to do her art, her poetry, anything that evolved in artistic behavior. She just lost hope on. And because he constantly just grew worse and worse on blaming her for every single thing that has happened, the mom leaving, the brother dying. P.S. The dad was out there. He could have very easily, watched the son, but no, he was too busy being drunk. So that just shows how good of a father he is. But goes on and on and on, to the point where it comes to her deceased brother's birthday, or the day that he would have gotten a year older if he was still alive. She ends up going to a bridge that was called Death Leap Bridge, because it was a very narrow bridge over a very rocky river that you could look down. You see the river was very turbulent, kept on going by fast, and you see a whole bunch of rocks just sticking out of it. So she loses faith. She's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't go on without my brother. There's no reason for me to live. So she goes over to the railing and looks down, and give it about a few seconds or so, she ends up hearing a thunder of caws from crows and everything coming from distance. Then she sees a black cloud cloud just break from the sky, and a whole flock of crows just end up like within like about 30 seconds to a minute, just end up landing all around her and watching her. And the moment she looks at them and they're just eyeing her up, analyzing her and everything, just staring her down, and the moment she loosens up her grip and starts leaning forward a little bit more, they all start like cawing and everything, like they're telling her, no, don't do it, we care about you. And it was kind of a very sweet moment. And she's like, wow, something in this world actually does care about me. So she ended up, keeping herself living. She ended up gaining her passion back for her art. She ended up doing a shadow acrylic type of art, which is what she became known for, and then grew into poetry, which would, be like about the government being corrupted and stuff like that, kind of like a militant type of poetry. Then she also started incorporating, different colors into her art and everything. Like so she started widening her color palette, growing more into the artist that she was the day, she finally met her end. She ended up getting noticed by a multinational conglomerate that noticed her and her group of friends she ended up forming that was full of different artists that accepted her and her art. So the conglomerate was called Vax Label, and they were kind of shady and everything. But before I get more into that, something else that was really interesting is that anytime she had like a gallery, or she did like a show where she did like her poetry and everything, there was always like a crowd of crows like surrounding the area, like they were there for like as her bodyguards or like her just support system, which I found that very nice because that was very sweet. So fast forward, she ends up getting signed by Vax Label. She ends up looking into them and finds out there's like some shady stuff happening around them. So because of this, it was like kind of her main reason to sign, because she wanted to investigate even further and then kind of in a way humiliate them, because she found out that a bunch of their artists who got commissioned for different art pieces and everything just slowly disappeared after it happened. Then she'd also figure out that certain government officials would end up getting art from the Vax Label company. And these were very distrustful government people. They were pretty much big political parties that were very corrupt. So she ended up doing a big piece in a cemetery in a very, like kind of like I think what it was like some type of like costume / dress that like kind of like made a point. It also had like a poem on it, which kind of brings out why her outfit and most of her outfits in the game is like kind of like this nice like looking dress and everything, is because that's what she wore, that kind of painted like a target on her back, because it had a militant poetry on it that said pretty much talking about the corruptness of the government. And she did a piece on a big mural in the middle of the cemetery, which brought a lot of attention. So because of that whole big thing, she got a target on her back for it. And then since she started getting so many death threats and everything, her and her friends ironically ended up going back to her father's house to hide for safety. But that night that they went there to hide, they immediately got overrun by gunmen, got thrown into a van, and woke up the next morning in the middle of a desert. Like, it went as she woke up to the breeze of sand in her face. And as she awoke, she noticed that she was in the middle of a desert, strapped to a chair and everything, tied down, while she noticed her friends were tied down on the ground. And then a long-robed, hooded figure came in front of her, overshadowing her. And then he started reciting a hymn in a different language that she didn't recognize. And all of a sudden, without like a second thought, just very sudden, with one foul swoop, he cut off her hands in one go. And as she wailed in agony and screamed to the high heavens, her friends woke up to seeing the sight of her hands falling to the ground in a bloody mess. And then the robed figure said, "How will you do your art now?" And he held her face as he did, and she spat in his face. And he just laughed. And then he took out her tongue, slashed that off as well, and said, "How will you do your poetry now?" And as she wailed in agony and rage just filled up within inside her, she grew more and more angry and then just let out the same scream that she let out the day her brother died. And then the whole sky darkened. Then you saw a black cloud break from the dark sky, and you heard a thunder of crows and caws, and within seconds, the robed figure was surrounded by crows, and his flesh was being picked apart. He was eaten alive by crows. And as this happened, she smiled to the fact that the poetry and the art she did was now coming alive in front of her. So as this was happening, as the figure was killed and he was pretty much getting to the point he was all bone, the crows were so ravenous and hungry. So the things that they decided to go to after the robed man were her friends still tied on the ground. So they turned to them, start eating them alive as well. And as she watched in horror and screamed, trying to see if her screams could make the crows like go somewhere else or just stop, and she just started, crying and screaming in agony because she felt that everyone important to her in her life died because of her. And as this happened, a black, dark fog engulfed her and swallowed her away. That's the reason why she has such like a haunting kind of like scary scream, is because her voice is pretty much, she has no tongue, and her voice is pretty much, kind of like sore and scratched up from screaming and just wailing in pain. And then her hands being the way they are now is because her hands were chopped off, so the entity kind of like replaced them with shadow acrylic ink like she did with her art. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah, that was really good.
I couldn't really find too much about like the mom or anything, and the only parts I could see about the dad was like he was an alcoholic a-hole. But yeah, that was mainly it. I tried looking into like the road man and maybe like his Heim was to summon the entity or something, but I couldn't find anything on that. It was just, what I could find was just like, oh, it was just, add flavor to the backstory. So, but yeah, that was pretty interesting. I tried figuring out like why her Mori was the way it was, because she literally like shoves her ink inside of you and has like a shadow ink crow burst out of you like a alien. So I couldn't really find out why that was her Mori. I couldn't, like, I could find out, like, it's kind of obvious that, like, some of her, add-ons were, like, one was, like, severed hands, another was her tongue, another was, like, an egg, and then, like, the pen, some was chocolate. It was just different things that was in her backstory as, like, the artist and how she ended up dying. But I currently find like anything too specific on anything else. But if any of you watching this end up having like any other interesting things you might know about any of the killers we talked about today, you want to drop it in the comments, go ahead. We'll love to read it and just expand our knowledge on the Dead by Daylight lore and how everything works and how everything happened. Thank you all so much for watching this YouTube video. I mean the podcast. We're still looking at a way on how to put the podcast onto like maybe Spotify or what was the other one? The Amazon one? You know what it is. You know what I'm talking about. Audio something? No. It don't matter. It don't matter. You know what I'm talking about. You get it. But we're still looking at ways on how to put the podcast on to any of those platforms. So if you have any suggestions on how to do so, leave it in the comment section down below. We would really appreciate it. And now to shout out our guests. So the first one to go to let himself be shouted out is our recurring guest, Dr. Weewoo. Take it away.
I'm Dr. Weewoo. I stream on twitch.tv, and I'm a variety streamer, but I do play a lot of DBD. I am currently Red 2 on DBD, and I also am on Instagram. It's Dr. Weewoo Official. 3 E's, 3 O's. Hope to see you guys.
All right. Our guest, Fiery, I don't really think he has any social media type stuff. He's just a normal everyday guy as far as I know, except he's our friend. Fiery,
every gay guy.
Fiery, is there like any type of like social media that you might be prevalent on, that you like doing content on? You may shout yourself out.
Yeah, I probably should do a Twitch. A lot of people say I should do a Twitch, but no, I'm just happy to be here because I know a lot about most of the killers. I don't really know about survivors. You guys should do some survivors because I know some of them are pretty interesting. But no, I find the killers a lot more interesting because like they get corrupted, or sometimes it's an accident, or like I know the twins. It wasn't even their fault. It's just how they are, and yeah. So.
Okay. And then the shout out from my mod / co-host, Amber and Nina. Nina's a little sick right now, so she's not going to be saying anything, but she might be doing random movements in the back while Amber talks about their stuff. So, take it away, guys.
Alrighty, well, there's two things, because there's two of us, so we could say two things. First one, we have a resin shop, and that's where we just make a bunch of crafts, and it's actually pretty decent. You know, I not being biased or anything, but it's pretty good. You can find us at resiningdays.com. Link will be down below. And we also have an Instagram along with that. Same thing, Resining Days. All one word. And we also have a YouTube channel about paranormal things and serial killers. So true crime and paranormal. And that is Panda and Nina Paranormal Sisters. And on Instagram, it's PN_sisters? Yeah, right? Yeah. No, PN_paranormal sisters. It's been a very long time since I've thought about our tag on Instagram, but yeah, that's where we are. So come join us. We don't have a Twitter or anything like that, but we have Instagram and YouTube.
All right. Well, yet again, thank you guys so much for being here and for supporting the podcast and just, being here for the fun and the talking about the random stuff that we have upcoming and during these episodes. So, yeah. And to shout out myself, because you're on my YouTube channel. If I didn't shout out my other stuff, I'd be dumb. I wouldn't be social marketing. So, obviously you're on the YouTube channel, Shane's World. There's also a Twitch channel that I do stream Monday through Saturday from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Mostly it's Dead by Daylight, but Wednesdays and Saturdays I do a single player game. Sometimes on days off when I have the time, I'll either start the stream extra early, or I'll have 2 streams during that day. more than likely the first stream of that day would be the single player game, so I can get some of the stories and some of the stuff out, because I do have some single player games I want to play that are going to be coming up in the near future that I will be posting on this YouTube channel as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun as for you guys to look forward to. Another thing is that the Twitch TV is Shane's Worlds. So instead of Shane World, it's going to be S at the end. And then I do have an Instagram and Twitter that I will link down below. Same thing, Shane's World. Pretty fun. I've been getting better at posting on Twitter, and I've been getting better at posting on Instagram as well. So I have more content coming those way. And I do have a TikTok as well that I will be posting clips from Dead by Daylight and just other random goofy stuff I will be doing, because apparently a lot of people like seeing me in a Scream costume. I mean, a Ghostface costume. So I might end up doing that Infinity TikTok trend that's going on, but in the Ghostface costume. So little tidbit. If you end up seeing that on Shane's World's TikTok, this was me announcing it on the podcast. So yeah. Actually, I don't know. By the time this comes out, I don't know if it will still be Revler or not. I don't know. We'll find out. If you end up watching it and you end up enjoying it, cool. But thanks so much for everyone to watch. We'll see you in the next episode. Episode? We'll see you in the next one. And the next one's going to be a fun one about... It's going to be it's going to be about killers again, but versing something. We're not going to let you know what it would be versing, but it's going to be lots of fun. So yeah, look forward to you guys in the next one. Hope you guys had a great Christmas, because I know this will be one to be coming out after Christmas. And hope you are enjoying the holidays. Peace.